So let's talk about another reason here, free will. I don't know what number we're on, 6 or 7 at this point, probably. Free will. It seems just a fact of our experience that we seem to be able to make free decisions. To go back to what John Searle says, there's all sorts of experiences we have in life, though, where it seems just a fact of our experience that though we did one thing, we feel like we know perfectly well we could have done something else. Human freedom is just a fact of our experience. In the same way, the fact that I have free will is an immediate experience of my life. Every time I pick up a cup, it seems obvious that I could have refrained from doing that, but I decided freely to pick it up. Now, if physicalism is true, then clearly that perception that I have free will is wildly deceptive. Because if physicalism is true, then every single thought I have is determined from the beginning of the universe based on the initial laws and conditions of the universe, and everything's been determined through this causal determinative process, ending up with the atoms in my brain, which determine that I have certain thoughts and experiences, right? And determines that I act in certain ways. So if physicalism is true, then this experience of free will, once again, is deceiving me. And I just want to say, once again, if a worldview requires me to reject something that is an obvious and consistent part of my daily experience, that's a good reason to doubt that worldview. Another reason to doubt that we're just physical has to do with rationality. This is the idea that we often seem to say that certain decisions are done for good reasons and other decisions are foolish, right? We often judge people who make foolish decisions, that what they do or believe might be irrational. And we'll often argue with people like, hey, you're wrong about some position or some viewpoint, and here's why. Well, the problem is if we're purely physical creatures, then that would mean that every belief I have is purely determined by the underlying physical states. And so it's hard to see where this idea of reason could even come into the picture. The reason I believe what I believe is because I've been determined to do so. The reason you believe what you believe is because you've been determined to do so, and reason doesn't enter into it. And so I really like what Nancy Murphy has to say. Nancy Murphy is also a physicalist. She's not a reductive physicalist, but she is a physicalist. And what she points out is that causal reductionism simply has to be false. If thought can be reduced entirely to the laws of neurobiology, then the very idea of arguing for the position makes no sense, since what may appear to be an acceptance of a conclusion based on reason must instead be the result of meaningless causal processes. For those of you who have read C.S. Lewis, you'll recognize this as kind of a restatement in a simple form of the argument from reason. And I'll quote C.S. Lewis at a little more length here because I think the statement's really good. Lewis says, one absolutely central inconsistency ruins the naturalistic worldview. The whole picture professes to depend on inferences from observed facts. Unless inference is valid, the whole picture disappears. Unless reason is an absolute, all is in ruins. So he's pointing out here that people who will tell you the world is nothing but matter will go on to tell you that this is the result of clear thinking, reason, and evaluating the evidence and making proper inferences from facts. He goes on to say, but those who ask me to believe this world picture also ask me to believe that reason is simply the unforeseen and unintended byproduct of a mindless matter at one stage of its endless and aimless becoming. Here is flat contradiction. They ask me at the same moment to accept a conclusion and to discredit the only testimony on which that conclusion can be based. This argument has been developed, I think, very well by multiple philosophers. William Hasker, Alvin Plantinga has a version of it. Victor Reppert puts forward several versions of it in C.S. Lewis's Dangerous Idea. Excellent book. I highly recommend it. But yeah, the argument from reason. Reason is a good reason to think that we are not reducible to the matter that makes us up.
If you're joining us for the first time, we at Ratio Christi have been very excited about these free webinars, one of our newest initiatives. So these 1-hour sessions have a couple of goals. First, we want to give you a sneak peek at the kinds of things we talk about on a regular basis. Things that can equip you with historical, scientific, and philosophical reasons for believing that Christianity is true, and reasons that you can share with skeptical friends. If you're brand new to us, our name, Ratio Christi, is a Latin phrase that means the reason of Christ. Our goal is empowering Christian students in their walk with Jesus and inviting non-Christian students to examine the evidence for Jesus in a rational way. Second, what we want to do with these webinars is introduce more people to those of us on staff that are doing the boots on the ground work in this ministry, potentially near you. Perhaps it's the case that you've heard of us through the grapevine, but don't know anyone in the ministry, or maybe you don't know what we do. If you're interested, when we're done here, we encourage you to go to our website, ratiochristi.org, and select the chapters tab and see if we're near you. If not, perhaps you could start a chapter. So most months, what you'll hear in these webinars are you'll hear from Ratio Christi staff located all across the country, and you'll get to hear some of what they do in their ministry. These webinars are all free and open to the public, so please remember to share these links when they go out and invite your friends.